Chapter 1. Outside, in the dead vacuum of space, there was no sound. But inside the robot ship, the steady drone of the gravity drives vibrated like a low note played on some deep-throated musical instrument. It went through the flesh, to the bone, right to the soul. It had been there since the sleep chambers clamshelled up to expose their inhabitants to it. A mechanized Om that lulled, as if calling them back into the long sleep, no chambers needed. Billy sat in the makeshift kitchen, staring at what passed for coffee. The colour was right, but that was about all. The taste was almost nothing, hot water with some vague taint to it. She watched it cool, stuck in the post-hypersleep lethargy, her own animation still feeling somewhat suspended. It was like the flu. You couldn't cure it, and it just seemed to hang on forever sometimes. The coffee vibrated, making tiny ripples that lapped against the circular wall of the cup. Behind her, Wilkes said, "Tastes like shit, don't it?" "That would be an improvement," Billy said. She didn't turn to look at him as he moved into the room. He sat on the bulkhead rollout to her right and watched her for a few seconds before he spoke again. "You okay?" "Me? Yeah, I'm fine. Why shouldn't I be okay? I'm on a robot ship going God knows where, leaving behind an Earth overrun by alien monsters, in the company of half an android and a marine who is probably a borderline psycho." "What do you mean, borderline?" he said. "Hey, I'm certifiable on any world you want to name." Billy glanced at him, couldn't stop the grin that matched his, shook her head. "Jesus, Wilkes. Hey, cheer up, kid. It's not as if things are really bad. We've got each other. You, me, and Beulah." There was silence for a moment. Then, "I'm going to go monitor the casts. You want to come along?" Billy shifted on the crate that she was using for a chair, looked at Wilkes. The burn scar on his face was something she almost never noticed anymore, but in this light it gave his features a kind of wry malevolence, like some minor demon out to play practical jokes. "No," she finally said. "Suit yourself." He stood. Billy sipped at the tepid liquid, made a face of the non-taste. "Wait, I changed my mind. I'll go along." It wasn't as if there was an awful lot to do on this tub. Since they'd awakened, a week had gone past, with no sign of stopping. Their monitoring gear was crappy, but even so, if there were any human-inhabited places around, they should have spotted them. The gravity drive was a lot faster than the old reaction sprayers, but if there was a planetary system, Wilkes couldn't find it. There were better ways to die than starving on a ship going nowhere. She should go and see if Mitch wanted to come with them. Mitch. She had trouble with that even now. Yeah, she loved him, but what a can of worms that turned out to be. Or maybe not worms exactly, but whatever plumbing androids had installed sure looked vermin-like. She loved him, but she also hated him. How was that possible, to have two such opposing feelings at once for someone? Maybe the medics in the hospital where she'd spent all those years were right. Maybe she was crazy. The ship was fairly large. Most of it was given over to cargo. They hadn't really gotten around to exploring all the nooks in it yet. Billy supposed that if they were stuck in it much longer, she'd get around to some serious poking about, but the urge hadn't really come upon her. She wasn't quite bored enough. Why bother? Who gave a shit? The control room was tiny, barely space for two to wedge their way into it. The designers had only had to leave enough room for a repair tech, since the thing had been built to be run by the computer and a few service robots. The cast screens were blank, save for the two running ship data in computer language. "Showtime," Wilkes said. He wasn't smiling. A man who looked like Albert Einstein at 60 said, "Have we got it? Have we got the uplink? Okay, listen. Anybody out there? This is Herman Koch in Charlotte. We're out of food. We're almost out of water. We're overrun. The damn things are killing or kidnapping everybody. There are only 20 of us left alive." The man went away, and abruptly there was another place. Outside, a bright and sunny day, spring flowers in bloom, bright green leaves sprouting on the trees. Only something hideous wrecked the scene. One of the aliens carried, under its arm, a woman, as a man might carry a small dog. The alien was 3 meters tall, light gleaming from its black exoskeleton. Its head was shaped like a mutated banana. It looked like some obscene crossbreed between an insect and a lizard. Bony, notched spars protruded from the thing's back like exposed ribs, 3 paired sets. It walked upright on 2 legs, a fact that seemed impossible given the way it was constructed, and a long, vertebrae-flanged and pointed tail swept the pavement behind it as it moved. A bullet spanged off the thing's head, doing no more damage to the hard surface than a rubber ball bouncing on a plasticrete sidewalk. The alien turned and looked at the unseen shooters. "Aim for the woman!" somebody screamed. "Shoot Jana!" Before the alien kidnapper could flee with its prey, 3 more shots boomed. One of them missed completely. One of them hit the alien's chest, flattened on the natural armor, did no harm. The 3rd bullet hit the woman, just above the left eye. "Thank God," the unseen speaker said. The alien sensed something was wrong. It lifted the woman up, held her at arm's length, turned its head from side to side, as if examining her. The thing looked at the shooters. It dropped the dead or dying woman onto the sidewalk, as if she were yesterday's garbage, began to run directly towards the shooters, made a hissing, burbling sound as it came. Here, what was once a school classroom, but the rows of blank computer terminals were powerless. The only light was that which slanted in through a broken window. A human body lay on the floor, parts of it gone, eaten away, leaving a fly-blown, swollen mass. Maggots swarmed in the rank remains, and the putrefaction had drawn ants and other small scavengers. The corpse was too far gone to say what sex it had been. Above the body, spray-painted on the wall in letters 1/2 meter high, were the words, "Darwin estis correcto." Darwin was right. Had the dead person written those words as a final statement, or had the human arrived later to contemplate them, to seek after truth, before the higher link in the food chain came for its due? Words like these had power, but in the jungle, the sword, the tooth, the claw were mightier than the pen. Always. A young man, maybe 25, sat in a church in the front pew. Religion hadn't been doing so well on earth in the last 20 years, but there were still places of worship. A soft glow from beneath the cross mounted behind the altar illuminated the young man, who sat in the front row of the otherwise empty church, with his eyes closed, praying aloud. "And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil," he said. "For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen." Almost without a pause, the young man began the prayer again, speaking in a monotone. "Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name." A dim, fuzzy shadow loomed suddenly on the wall at the end of the pew. "Thy kingdom come, thy will be done." The shadow grew larger. "On earth, as it is in heaven." There came a faint rasping on the floor, and if the young man praying heard it, he made no sign. "Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors." The alien rose from behind the praying man, clear slime dripping in jelly-like strings from its jaws. The lips cleared the sharp teeth. Its mouth opened, revealing an inner set of smaller teeth, more like a claw in their function. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. The inner set of teeth was mounted on a greasy, ridged pole. The rod shot from the thing's mouth with incredible speed and power. The sharp teeth punched a hole in the top of the praying man's skull, as if it were no thicker or harder than wet paper. Blood and brain tissue splashed. The praying man's eyes snapped open in a final surprise, and he managed one word. God! The alien caught his shoulders with its taloned hands and lifted him clear of the pew, the claws piercing flesh and drawing gouts of blood from a heart that didn't know it was dead yet. The alien and its prey disappeared from view, leaving only a small puddle of congealing blood and a few flecks of grey matter on the pew to show that they had been there. The pew stood empty and silent. God, it seemed, wasn't taking "deliver us from evil" petitions just now. Wilkes leaned back and stared at the empty church on the screen. "Automatic camera," he said. "Probably set to catch thieves. Wonder how the signal got this far." Next to him, Billy's face was streaked with fresh tears. "Jesus, Wilkes. Amazing how people keep sending the casts out. Like they really expect help. Or maybe it's like an old grave headstone, you know? The signals will go into space. Forever. Immortality as a radio wave. Maybe they think 1,000,000 light years from Earth somebody will pick them up and give a shit. You know, buy a bag of popcorn and watch The End of Man. Maybe on a double bill with a nature special." Billy stood. "I'm going to see Mitch," she said. "Give him my love," Wilkes said. She tightened. He could see her go tense, and he thought about softening it, but said nothing as she left. Fuck it, it doesn't matter. Wilkes scanned the casts, looking for something different, but found only more of the same. Death, destruction, bodies rotting in the streets, animals feeding on them. A pack of dogs worried over a human arm. There wasn't any sound, probably a traffic cam, but he could tell they were growling and snarling at each other. The arm was bloated and slug belly white. Been out in the sun too long, Wilkes figured. Well, whoever had owned it probably didn't have any use for it. Might as well let the dogs eat it. It was just carrion now. He shut the feed from Earth off. It was all history now. Whatever he was looking at had happened already, was over with, done. He played with the scanners again, looking for wherever this ship might be bound. It was a crappy situation, the ship having been designed without passengers in mind. He'd managed to rig a few programs to get a read on the screens, which were only there for an emergency backup anyhow, way he figured it. Probably cobbled together after things went bad on Earth, and as such was built with fence wire and prayer. After seeing the guy in the church, Wilkes didn't have a lot of faith in prayer. Not that he'd ever had much to begin with. The ship knew where it was going, maybe, but that didn't help Wilkes. There must be a planet or wheel world out here somewhere. There was a G-class star less than 200 million clicks away, but if it had satellites, he hadn't spotted them yet. Had to be there. Otherwise, why would the sleep chambers let them out? Could be a malfunction, asshole, the little voice in his head said, with a smirk. Could be you're all gonna die. Fuck you, Wilkes told the voice. I've got business to finish before I die. And you think the universe cares about your business? Fuck you, pal, you and the id you rode in on. The voice rewarded him with a nasty laugh.